Okay, well, welcome everyone to another episode of the None of Our Businesses show and podcast. I have with me here Doctors Kim and Todd Saxton. We are doing this via Zoom, and we would have done this via Zoom in any case, even though we're in the midst of the COVID-19, because Doctors Saxtons they're professors, award-winning professors at Indiana's University Kelley School of Business. They're the co-authors of the Titanic Effect, which we'll talk a bit about here today. And that book is a very practical guide to helping startup founders and investors and different constituents successfully navigate the icebergs that so often sink startups in their early stages. Our guests are also startup co-founders themselves, angel investors, and advisors professionally. So I think we're going to have lots of great and interesting things to talk about here. And I'd love to get started by saying welcome and maybe giving the two of you an opportunity to talk a little about your background as educators and as co-founders, and maybe kind of an initial introduction to the book.
Thanks. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. I'll kind of kick it off a little bit, going back in our professional history, wind back a little bit to when we met. So we were at the same consulting firm in the DC area coming out of undergraduate, and we did business consulting for a variety of larger firms, market research, competitive analysis, acquisition and alliance support, things along those lines. We did that for 6 years. That's when we got married, and then went back to school to get our PhDs and took the professorial route. So I think that origin of the consulting work has always given us a little bit of a practical orientation, and that's what we tried to reflect in the book.
Yeah, and Indianapolis is a small, big town. So, it's the big town in the United States, but we often say there's not 6 degrees of separation, it's 2. And after you've been here for 20 years, it's maybe not even 2. I mean, it's hard to go to the airport and not see somebody, And so we've been very active in the community because of that practical look that we take by, being a part of the venture community. And we just have got to watch a lot of startups and would-be startups and were startups and the like. And what we noticed over 20 years is we kept seeing similar mistakes, if you will, happening over and over again. And so we were like, we should tell people about these mistakes. I mean, we're professors anyway. That's one of the things we like to do. But also when you're a startup founder, you're so excited about what you're trying to accomplish. It doesn't always hit you that you don't really often know that much about business. And so these are just like, you couldn't possibly have known better because this is the first time you've done something. And so we did a presentation and people loved it. And somebody walked up to us and said, you should write a book. And we said, oh, that's an interesting idea. And so we wrote a book.
What's interesting, I think, in terms of connecting it to the current environment, COVID, et cetera, a big impetus for writing the book was helping founders, particularly of high growth or high potential startups, kind of the terminology we use is navigating that uncertainty, and the metaphor of the Titanic, which is prominent in our title. But pretty much every business right now is facing tremendous uncertainty moving forward, and particularly your audience, those who support them or maybe are running their own businesses. I think the framework can have some applicability to the kinds of decisions that we need to make under uncertainty and some of the icebergs that we want to help people avoid making as they navigate through that uncertainty. And we could talk more about the framework and the metaphor, et cetera, but I think there's relevance to actually a broader kind of set of organizations than just startups getting going in today's world, for better or for worse.